Hello there everybody, welcome to this recorded webinar. My name's Andy Campbell. I'm going to be taking you through using Perfect Effects 4. Okay, we're going to kind of start, I like to sort of start at the beginning, so it's going to be sort of for beginners as well as advanced users, and we're going to kind of go through as if this is almost the first time you've been using the program as well. So welcome. The webinar was recorded from a webinar I did on Tuesday, which was the 1st of October 2013, if you're wondering. If you're viewing this webinar at a later stage, some things I say might not be relevant at this stage, but I'll explain in just a second. Of course, you can sign up for webinars if it's something you've never done. You're just watching this recording for the sort of first time and this is your first experience of On1 Software, then you can go to on1software.com/learn and you'll find the information that you require for all the live webinars we do. We're also going to look during this webinar at a bit of a sneak peek at Perfect Photo Suite 8. So as I said before, this is recorded from a webinar I did on the 1st of October 2013. If you're watching this and it's after November the 26th, then what I'm showing you will be an advanced beta version before that date. So if it is after the 26th of November, you might want to watch a Suite 8 training video to make sure everything's relevant, basically. And of course, thank you very much for watching my video. So let's just quit Keynote here, and we're going to launch Perfect Photo Suite 7. Okay, so I've launched Perfect Photo Suite 7. You can see my screen here. We start off in an area called Perfect Layers. Now, if you're not using the suite or using Perfect Layers, in fact, as a standalone product, then you might well be opening your image in something like Photoshop, Photoshop Elements, even Aperture or Lightroom we can plug into. So you might be working from a program like that. Then, you know, don't worry about this bit too much. But basically, inside of Perfect Layers, if you've never used Suite 7 as a standalone product before, okay, then you can actually open images from the file browser inside. Okay, which is very, very useful. So here I'm just going to literally double click on an image that I want to open here, which is this image of this girl. We're going to say busking, but let's face it, there's no sort of bucket or anything there to take her cash. So I think it's just more of a sort of outdoor portrait shoot type thing. But what we're going to try and do is make it look, well, a lot more impactful image, a little bit more interesting. Also, as it's a young, relatively young person there, I mean, she's probably about 17, 18, something like that. It's pretty cool these days. Let's recreate some kind of Instagram type effect, but let's actually be able to edit it more than we can on something like Instagram, which is great. So to launch into Perfect Effects, you'll see at the top of my screen here, we start off in layers, as I've been telling you before, okay, and then we'll go into Perfect Effects. And to do that, click on the button that says Effects. If you're not a Suite user, by the way, and you're watching this, or you have, you know, the free edition of Perfect Effects, then, you know, this is something that you might want to be interested in. The whole suite works in unison like this. So I've got my different products here at the top, but obviously today we're just looking at Perfect Effects. So where to start really with Perfect Effects? Well, I like to think of it as if we're kind of reading a book from left to right, okay, with each page. So really your kind of starting point, or I think most people would definitely start there, is going to be the left hand side of the screen. On the left hand side of the screen here, it'll start you off in the effects, okay, but just in case you are opening up the product again, it has sticky settings, which we like to call it, which basically means depending on which section of the product you're in, so for example the favorites position here, you might launch the product and it's going to start there next time because it imagines that that's your preferred workflow, so it will stick there. So if you get confused, bear in mind that there's 3 options here at the top of the effects browser. Okay, so you've got favorites, my presets, where any save presets you make will appear as well, and also extremely useful at this stage, if you ever forget to save a preset, then under my presets you have recently used. It's going to show you the last 9 times that you've gone into the product. I know it says 7 down there. This is a pretty new install, so I've only probably been into the product literally 7 times. So you can see each of my sort of workflows that I've used in there so far. So if you ever forget to save, recently used can be extremely useful for you, because you can just literally apply your preset from there and save it, okay, which is definitely recommended. Otherwise, we're going to start in the effects here, so I'm going to go back to that. So here's my presets, or effects really, or filters, depends which way you want to look at it. And in here, what we've done is divided it into categories, because we have like 401 effects in here, which is a lot. It's a lot to get your head around. So if you're feeling particularly brave, you could click on all and start scrolling through all the effects we have, just to give yourself a taster. Otherwise, what we've done is divided them into categories, sort of bite-sized chunks here. So for example, alternative processors here, we can open up like so, and you're just going to see this particular category. Antique, another one here, and you can open them up and see those types of effects. Okay, we're going to look at that in a lot more detail in a second. The next part of the program really is the main image window. So within here you've got your main image. You've also got use of then tools like the masking brush, the masking bug, which I'm going to go over today on how we use those, so we can edit each effect as well with those tools if needed, once they're applied, of course. Then on the right hand side, finally, we have the Navigator window. We have a loop, a histogram, and file info if we want to look at that type of thing as well within Perfect Effects. But generally I tend to stick with the Navigator window. It's useful for me. I can do my zooming from here if I wished. I can also then see on the right hand side my effects stack, where we're going to stack up effects. I can also see my effect options as well if I need to go into those, and we will do this later, I promise. So let's actually start to make an edit on this image. So the first thing I'm going to do, I kind of go, if I wanted to kind of create, you know, Instagram type styles, or also, by the way, if I'm going to edit images, sort of baby shots, little toddlers, that type of thing, so young kids, excuse me as I have a drink, then basically I think a great little starting section for you, of course you can go into any, but this is a good start for you, would be either the vintage section, which is found right here at the bottom of your catalogue of effects, and here we're going to then have a look at what they look like, basically. Another good section, by the way, if you are interested in you know, younger shots and that sort of thing, so babies and bits again, would be the true film section as well. Extremely useful for me, because they're quite, a lot of the effects in there aren't too intense at times. They're quite nice with, you know, younger skin. You don't want to really sort of do too many kind of heavy contrasty effects, in my opinion. Of course, it's up to you. But we'll go into vintage. Now, how do we use this? Well, we could simply use it here by clicking on, say, Brandon, which is an effect I want to use here, and it's going to apply to the image, okay? But if we want to see this a bit bigger, we can actually drag this out, so we see bigger previews of the effects. We've also then got uses of things like the column views down here. So a 2-column view, a 3-column view, like so. We've even got a list view if you wanted to use that instead, okay? We'll go back to my single view. I'll shrink it down, okay, again, because we've got an even more useful view in my opinion here, which is next to where it says vintage, in fact, next to every category, so vignettes above, lighten, vignettes darken, you'll see that there's this little box, and this is our quick view browser. So if I click that, we get a full screen view suddenly of the effects, and this is my go-to area really. It's brilliant for doing all this kind of stuff. So as we kind of drag up and down, we can look at the different effects within a particular category, okay, like so. We can also drag this little slider in the bottom left-hand corner so we kind of see more at a time. This is probably the right thing to do really for a lot of you, is start off in a smaller view, especially in a big category like vintage, and then basically drag this in once you've found one you like the look of, have a look at it again. Okay, brilliant. I mean, that Soho effect, for instance, there is just looking brilliant for me. Absolutely stunning as I'm scrolling here. So what I'm going to do instead is choose that. And at any stage here, because I'm using currently a single click, if I just click Soho again, it's going to switch it, okay, which is great. Okay, so we can do that. In fact, I've just suddenly thought of something I definitely want to do here. So I'm going to show you a little technique I like to use. And basically this is really useful because if you want to sort of speed things up, so here, let's actually, you know, switch again. So instead of Soho, here in my effects stack, I'm going to use a double click though this time on Brandon to show you what that means. What a double click does, okay, is it switches the effect over here in my effects stack, but then what it does is it assumes that I want to use the effect as we see it at full strength, and it automatically goes ahead and presses the add button. So it's a shortcut to add an effect. And basically the idea of that is that if I wanted to then go into the vintage section again, and right down near the bottom, because we've looked at it once, we kind of know, there we go, we've got that Soho effect here, where we can see it. So you can basically live in the left hand side of the screen if you wanted to, just applying effects and stacking them up on top of each other. What of course we want to do today is edit this effect as well. So I don't want Brandon at full strength. I like it. It gives me a nice sort of contrast. It gives me a kind of interesting vignette around the edge as well, which I think is pretty cool. So we're going to keep that as it is to a certain extent. I'm just going to tone it down. Now, you'll notice here at the moment my amount slider's got greyed out. That's because at the moment we're editing an empty layer. It has nothing on it, so that's why. What we would need to do now is make sure Brandon is highlighted in light grey, okay, and then we can adjust the slider. So let's adjust it down, being pretty accurate here, and I'm just going to slide it to about 80%. I think looks nice. By the way, when I'm sliding that, I'm looking at the image. That's what I'm doing to make the judgment call instead of looking at the slider itself. So it's something you can kind of teach yourself, but I've got some cool techniques coming up for you as well for doing that. So we're going to have an empty layer here. Now something you might have noticed or not noticed, if we go to our Soho effect, in fact, what I'm going to, let's use the quick view browser one more time. So as you see, it can just be easier sometimes for when you're looking for your effects inside of Perfect Effects. Now, what happened is the preview jumps. We added an empty layer to that stack. Now this previewing system is absolutely brilliant. It's one of my favourite features of the product. It seems so simple, but it's excellent. If you think about it, if you've ever been using something like Photoshop, actions are extremely powerful. Use them for years myself, love them. One thing that annoyed me about them though, no previewing. Okay, so within here, we can immediately see, is that going to work? Is it not going to work? So if you've got your favourite effect, your favourite look that you use all the time, it might not necessarily work on all the effects, or sorry, all the images you use. Okay, so this is why the previewing is so good. Also, one little thing that's brilliant about the preview system is it's stackable. So we don't just see a preview of each effect on the original image. Now, because we've got 3 layers, we've got the original, we've got the Brandon effect, and now we've got an empty layer, we're seeing every effect in this window applied on top of Brandon. So what that means is you're always staying a step ahead of your stages. And it doesn't matter how many you've got in your stack. So it's really cool. So here I can see exactly how Soho is going to be affected when it goes on top of Brandon. So you can see suddenly this effect that's actually quite a soft effect has still got the sharpness in the bricks from my original Brandon effect. So I click that with a single click because I want to edit it. And what I want to do here is use a tool that I think a lot of people don't take advantage of inside of Perfect Effects, which is the masking bug. Now once you've selected the masking bug, I'll just have a drink, then what happens is it applies this kind of filter on top, okay? And it's pretty weird to use at first. You're not quite sure what it is. Well, we've had a plugin for years now called Focal Point. In fact, it's called Focus in the standalone suite up in that top right hand corner there. And it's there to emulate sort of tilt shift lenses. So this is like your tilt shift lens effect. And what you can do here, by the way, by holding down the Alt key on your keyboard, is actually tilt the effect. It's going to be very, very gradual here. You might not notice it immediately, but what we're doing is basically blending two layers together. But what I want to show you here is if you go up to the top where it says shape, choose round, and then it becomes a circular shape, look here, and it's putting a hole in the middle of the Soho effect. So we're taking it off of this area. And we can adjust the size by grabbing these little kind of pulleys here that we've got, okay, and tweaking it. By the way, inside of Suite 8 now, and I'm going to show you this later as well, I'm going to show you how this tool has come along. It's improved massively. But let's show you how to use it here. Also, you've got these two little sort of antennae. As I scroll over them, you'll see there, one is the mask opacity, and one is the opacity and the feathering. Okay, so how do you use this? Well, if you grab it, take it all the way as far down to the right so it locks in place, let go, you're going to see almost a hard kind of bubble edge has appeared around here on the image. That's because basically we've taken down the feather to 0. So up here in your controls, this is what it's controlling. So it's taken that feather down to 0. If I was to move that slider there, and you look down at the girl now, look, the antennae moves. So that's what we're controlling. But what's nice down here is you can literally grab the tool yourself and start to drag it. Okay. Also, by the way, at any point in time, what you can do is literally switch off the grid view if you don't like that. I find it very useful because it shows me exactly where the effect's being applied. But if that's not something you like, you can turn that off. And then finally, just by pulling it in and out, it's going to be adjusting the opacity or that amount slider that we've changed before. Now, one thing that people might want to do, and this is something that I want to do particularly with this, is we've now got the Soho effect around the edge of this kind of bubble that we've chosen. I want it in the middle of that. So to do that, you simply go up to the invert button and invert the effect. Okay, and what it's done is it's given me a kind of soft sort of vignette style now onto her. What I might do is just drag that out so it's a little bigger. So it's a beautiful way of blending effects together, and that's something that's just so useful. And people don't take advantage of it or don't think about it. So hopefully that's something you've learned new here, and we'll use that. Then I'm just going to press the add button again, add one more layer. We're going to go up to the frames, okay, and we're going to go to our sloppy borders here just because I think it's probably going to suit best. We'll go again to that beautiful quick view browser. Again, look at the preview system. I know we're just looking at frames now, so it's pretty simple, but look, everyone is identical apart from the frame. You're also even seeing that vignette that we've used. That's how cool the preview system is. Just love it. You know, and that's what all the graphics cards capabilities and RAM and everything that we want, which are quite high, is all about. I'm just choosing a very sort of simple sloppy border. It's one of the thinner ones. What I want to show you though here is something that's a bit more advanced. A lot of people will just use the frame. That's absolutely fine. That's up to you, okay? Something that's useful though is both, you know where we dragged to resize earlier? If I either click or drag that to the left, that's a nice feature. You can move it completely out of the way, take more advantage of the image that we've got here, see a little bit more clearly. So that's a feature. We can do the same on the right hand side, by the way. So if you were just brushing in an effect now, you could have access to basically all of your, screen real estate really for doing that, and that's an interesting feature. But here anyway, what I wanted to show you is effect options. With the borders here, and you won't see effect options, by the way, with every single effect. So if that happens to you, don't worry, it's supposed to happen. Some of them are presets. Now what we've worked hard on with the brand new version is that there may be sometimes less effects to choose from. That's because what we've done is we've made every single one now basically a filter that is infinitely editable in the effect options area. So every one inside of Suite 8 is going to be fully editable, which I think is going to be a great improvement. Can't wait for that. Remember, November the 26th should be when we receive Suite 8, and that's going to be exciting. Anyway, so we're in the effect options. Now, for borders, you could go into things like the category of the borders and choose any at this stage if you wanted to. We're on sloppy border number 19 if you go that way round. Also, mode is hard light, so that is different. These are blending modes, and as you scroll over these, you're going to see differences here. So for instance, if I go to lighten, what that's done is there was a kind of thin black kind of key line. Let's call it a key line for the sake of the argument. It's a bit more interesting than your average key line, but it was there. That's disappeared in lighten. We can only see the white frame. So you've got options here, folks. You don't have to live with how it is. If we go to darken, this is interesting. The key line comes back around the edge of that image, but the white's gone. So it's just kind of choosing different styles. You don't have to live with exactly how it is. So I'm going to go to darken. I think that's pretty funky. I like that effect that we've got. What I might just want to do is we can adjust the scale and the strength. So strength is basically opacity. I'm going to go to scale, move it along a little bit so it's just faintly around the edge of my image, which I like the look of. Okay, so we'll do that. Next thing I'm going to do is just then press apply. Before I do, just to explain as well, as people don't realise, you've got these little tools down here for rotating, flipping vertically, horizontally. There's lots of tools within Perfect Effects that people don't always necessarily notice, and they can be extremely useful. So we're just going to apply that back into Perfect Layers. And once we're back into Perfect Layers, let's just do a quick before and after, in case you're kind of skipping through the YouTube video and you can see what we were doing. So it's pretty cool, impactful effect. It's definitely funky. It's definitely interesting, I think, to a lot of, younger people, younger clientele. But we've got looks in there kind of for everybody, and they're so easy. If I wasn't talking you through that, it wouldn't have taken me that long to go through that process. Okay, let's close this image. We're going to look at something else now. So we're going to scroll down my file browser on the left hand side. Works, by the way, exactly the same as the browser inside of Effects. So if we want to, we could use the quick view browser here to go through and look at images this time instead of effects. And every product in Suite 8 is going to have this ability. It means that you've got a kind of seamless kind of workflow throughout the suite. And it means that if you've learned Perfect Effects, for argument's sake, that we're looking at today, and then you use Perfect Black and White for the first time ever, you know exactly how that browser works, and that's important. So it's just this kind of, it just works through, it's beautiful. We're going to open up this image. Now, with this particular image here, I want to go for kind of a funky sort of portrait, really sort of sports type shot. It could be for a sports editorial or something like that. let's imagine that for a second. But you know, I just want to funk this up a lot. We're going to go into some cool categories to look at that. So let's go ahead and jump into Perfect Effects. And once we're inside of Perfect Effects, you see how earlier in the demonstration, if you've been watching it all, I said about sticky settings. Look, it's disappeared, okay, because it's remembered where I was. So I'm just opening that back up just by simply clicking on this little kind of drag to resize grid. Once I've done that, I can see my effects appear again. Let's go down here a little bit. There's a great section for kind of grungy looks, and it's called Grunge, luckily enough, here. Okay, and if we go into this section, it's just got some beautiful effects. Some of my favourites in Imperfect Effects for kind of mean, moody portraiture, if that's the kind of thing you want to replicate straight off the bat here. So one of my absolute all-time favourites, I'm not going to use it here, it's a bit too dark and grungy, is this Arkham effect, which is basically emulating, you know, Arkham, if anyone knows it, it's Batman. It's from Batman, isn't it? Arkham City and all that. So that's what we're trying to replicate, so it is a kind of gritty, mean and moody, that kind of effect, which I love. Not quite right for this type of image. So what we're going to do instead is scroll down. Using just that single click means I don't have to press that delete button. I just go along here, change my mind. And let's face it, changing your mind quickly is a good thing with photography. So here we go. We're going to go to Grunge Goddess instead. It's a bit lighter. It's kind of got that mean and moodiness, but it's lost a lot of the darkness too. So we're going to use that. But at this stage, and I'm sure you'll agree when you're watching. I mean, by the way, ignore some of these spots. I should have cloned these out. Okay, we're not looking at that today. So ignore the fact that they've gone crazy. But it's made the sky go pretty. It's a pretty brilliant effect. I love it, where it's kind of gone all dark and moody, and it's also got a kind of phenomenal texture to it, which is great. What we don't want though, look, is this texture, in my opinion, on her skin. I think it's ruined it. Okay. And it looks a bit too much. So what we're going to do instead, okay, is brush this away. So we're going to grab the brush. You'll notice all of the tool controls are found at the top of the software. Okay, so whenever you're in doubt, they're at the top here. You've got the paint in mode. Now we want to paint out of the effect. We want to paint it off of her, basically. You have the option to paint in though. Remember, because you have the option at this stage to invert the effect completely. So flip it, make it the opposite of whatever it is. That's basically, for me, what invert means, the opposite. It flips it, then you can do it, then we could sort of paint this in to maybe just the sky. But instead, I'm going to say invert, because I do want it still on her kind of top here, on her towel and things. So it's easier for me just to paint it off of her skin and probably off of her hair as well. So to do that, I'm going to increase the brush size. Now, just before I explain that, we've got basically quick keys, like everything does, or keyboard shortcuts. I tend to call them quick keys. But keyboard shortcuts, if you want to find out what they are, go to Help, Show Keyboard Shortcuts. And it's going to show you all of them. I'm going to show you some of my favourites here. So if you want to increase brush size, it's very simple. It's the square bracket keys. Just one down basically from the minus and plus on your keyboard. One down, you've got the square bracket keys. If you hold down the shift key and use the square bracket keys, that's going to adjust the feathering, so the softness of the brush basically. Now something that I like to use, because I'm using a mouse, is this is a little kind of secret that a lot of people don't know, which is if you go to Preferences in the suite, and on a Mac it's under Perfect Photo Suite menu, Preferences. For Windows users, it's under Edit, Preferences, in case you're looking around for it. Here, now scrolling controls is usually set to none for everybody. What I've done is I've set it to brush size. So what that means for me is as I use my scroll wheel on my mouse, it's going to adjust the brush size, which I find a bit easier, okay? So we're going to go pretty big. I'm going to say that big and start to brush off the effect. Now, one thing that's gone wrong is, as we all know, and I know we know how a brush works, or a lot of us will. so bear with me, but I'm just explaining if you don't. The brush is obviously there, selecting the entire size of the circle and taking it away. That's how a brush generally works. So I should have gone smaller, but it's only because I want to show off a brand new tool to you. We can see we've got a kind of halo around her head, so the sky's gone. We wanted the contrast in the sky. So I'm just going to press Command Z or Command Z on your keyboard. It's going to undo what I've just done. What I'm going to do instead is turn on this feature. At the top here, you'll notice there's a little tick box marked, and it says here self-masking brush mode, but it's the perfect brush. We're going to tick it. What this now does is, let's just leave that brush there in the sky so you can see it with the contrast, so you can see the middle. Now in the middle of the brush there is a minus. If I press the X key, it becomes a plus. That's a shortcut to paint in, paint out. And that's all the minus and plus means. It's just a quick way for you to realise why is something not working. Oh, I'm in the wrong paint mode. You know, instead of like Photoshop where it's black and white, we've chosen to just have a plus or minus there. Now let's go back to a minus because that's what we want. But more importantly, with the perfect brush, that becomes a control point now for the tool. And the way that works, before I start brushing here, is it looks at differences in colour. Okay, and basically it's going to try and attempt to do some clever masking. So as I start to brush, okay, here, on the image, let's just stop there a second. It's not affecting that sky look, and I'll show you how it works. So what we're going to do is say Control M, which is a shortcut to a mask view. Look at that. I'm using an extremely big brush here. The control point is the minus. So if you've missed a spot, like her lips, just start to scroll it over. I think it is doing it there, believe it or not. And even that shadowy bit in the corner of her lip, then that starts to affect the hair because that's a similar colour. But that is my control point. So we can control that just by brushing. And look how accurate that is. That is scary. Well, it's not. It's actually brilliant. It's not scary. It's superb. But look at that control we've got just by adding the perfect brush feature in. Look at that. And I'm using a massive brush. Okay, it should be going all over. Now I know that the sky is different from her, but just take advantage of what it is and let's brush it. So I'm just literally brushing around. As I move, it then affects it. So it's just a matter of sort of carefully brushing around. It just means we're doing a lot less kind of add and remove from, you know, if you're into brushing, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're forever sitting there kind of trying to get it right. So this is extremely powerful. And it is going to be it's very accurate. Even when there are colours that are similar, it's going to be pretty accurate. Because look at her skin tone here. It's not changing too much, yet because it's changing slightly, the brush takes that into account. So it's just an excellent tool. Let's just carry on here. Brush, brush, brush. There we go. Let's switch off the mask because it looks really bizarre. Okay. What it means is we've taken that effect off of her. Okay. Now what we're going to do is press the Add button to add a new effect. Okay. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you another interesting feature. Just for an example, yeah, we'll use this. We want to go even kind of more, almost sci-fi-esque, but it's going to be more urban, more grungy, because that's what it's called. So I know that we've got an effect in here called urban sickness. Okay, now you might at home too do this exactly the same thing, which is forget exactly which category, because we've got a lot of categories. If I close them up, you know, we've got over 20. I'm not going to count them here, but we've got a lot of categories. So if you forget, there's a type search function which is extremely useful. So we'll just go urban. Okay, there it is, urban sickness. You can see it's a very kind of cool effect. By the way, as well, if you want to see more of a description about it, especially if you're going into something like the true film section, you want to see what is that effect trying to be. I'm pretty sure it's this old darkroom technique, for example, and you want to really know. Then if you go to View at the top of the software, and go down to show browser pop-up, it's switched off at the moment. If I click it, look again, it's now ticked on. And what this means is if I go over urban sickness, we're going to get a larger preview window open up, okay? And also there, we've got a description. It says author on one software, description for those grungy urban scenes where you want to add a little sci-fi color cast. So I kind of said that, didn't I? So sci-fi color cast, sorry, to your diet. I mean, that's it, them just trying to be amusing. But we get a description of what it is in case you're unsure. So what I meant, that's very useful for looking at something like True Film, where you've got old darkroom type styles, and you can look at those within there and get a description. So for example, this color chrome effect is similar to Kodak Kodachrome. This increases the contrast and pumps up the reds. Now remember, if you're watching this or you missed it earlier, that preview's stackable. So it's looking at it on top of Grunge Goddess. It's why it looks kind of so dark. But it is going to increase the colour palette of her, which is cool. Anyway, let's go back to Urban Sickness. Now at this stage as well, if I'd lost it, it was already flagged, so I'll deflag it, or defavoritize it, if you like. Basically here, if you've lost it, and it's one that you lose all the time, flag it as a favourite, and then next time, when I go into my favourites, scroll down, Urban Sickness is there, okay? So we can see it. Let's add it. Now, it's going to be an extreme colour cast, an extreme look at its full power. Now, this is what I say to people. Don't ever not choose something because it's too much. We can fix that. We've already seen that. I'll show you again just now. Let's just switch off, sorry, the show browser pop-up. If you forget about this, go to view, show browser pop-up, switch it off because it will annoy you as well when it's popping up. As it did there me. But basically, Urban Sickness. So what I was explaining is, if it's too strong, we can sort that out. The more important question when you're looking at these effects is it something that that's interesting? And that, you know, if it's too much, we can sort that out. So one technique I want to tell you about again here, something I love. Instead of me going over to the amount slider, if I'm in here and I'm brushing and I'm doing stuff, I want to control that amount slider. And this is one of the coolest set of keys for this ever, which is basically my number keys. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. Okay, 0 counts as 10 because I'm on a MacBook Pro. So I'm on a laptop, so you've got a 0 key. That counts as 10 or 100%. So let me explain. If I press 1, I'm going to press 1 now on my keyboard. Watch the amount slider. As I come over here, watch it. So 1 on my keyboard, that's 10%. So suddenly here on my amount slider, it's 10%. 2 is 20, 3 is 30, 4 is 40, and so on and so forth. 0 is 100% again. So for example here, Urban Sickness, if I press 5 now, it goes straight to sort of 50% or half the amount slider. Exactly here. That's what I like the look of. But this is where I kind of make a quick judgment call as well. I can kind of go 5, 6, 5, 6, 6 actually. You know, it's just changing my mind. Now, again, don't like that effect on top of her skin, sorry. So what can we do? Well, what we've done is we've already made a mask underneath with the Grunge Goddess layer. So what I do is I highlight that layer so it's in light grey for you. We go up to the top. There's no keyboard shortcut sadly for this. I'm not sure if they're going to do it for 8. I'll have to have a look. But anyway, at this stage, go to Mask, Copy Mask, go back up to the Urban Sickness layer. So that's highlighted now. Go to the top again, Mask, Paste Mask. Look at that. It's pasted the mask inside of there. It's saved me another 5-minute job, 10-minute job. Depends how long it took you to brush that. So it's always just looking at it. How can we save time? That's what's important. So here we've saved a bit of time with this. Okay. Also, what I want to do now is I'm going to add a new empty layer. I want to show you something. Now, just because this is something a lot of people ask, and I think it's a fair point. If we're in the, now notice here, I'm in the favourite section. Let me just have a quick drink. Excuse me. Right, so we go to effects. Now, in effects, people ask me this all the time. Antique. What are these antique effects about? Now, we can probably see straight away what they're about. If we go to antique flat grey, okay, it's giving me an antique kind of feel. It's quite graphical. But all the hard work I've done with the Grunge Goddess and Urban Sickness has just gone. Okay, let's try and tone it down. 5 on my keyboard. Basically half on the amount slider. Still, not really sure, you know, what's the point. So let me explain. If I go to 0, this is the way I use them. Other people on 1 might not agree with me, but this is what I do. This is my technique, and this is my explanation for these particular effects, is I want to use them as a kind of cool toner. So to do that, we're going to go into a special section of the product. Again, I don't think a lot of people take advantage of this. Hopefully you will from today onwards, which is at my effects stack here, at the bottom of that, just above the amount slider, you've got options. If you press options, this little floating panel is going to appear called blending options. Now, let's just move it out of the way for a second down here, and so you can see the main image too. Here we've got blending modes. So any effect you choose, it doesn't have to be the antique ones, you can suddenly use blending modes. Now suddenly it turns these, especially if you go to something like overlay here or some of the other blending modes, into like really cool sort of toners. So for me, if I'm using black and white sometimes, even from Perfect Black and White, the other product that specialises in black and whites, I might jump into here for some funky colour tones. For toners, you know, things like the Urban Sickness we've just seen, and some of these antique looks as well. And it's just going to basically give you different tones and textures. Let's go back to normal. I want to show you what blending options does anyway. This is it's one of the best areas of the product. Seriously, it's absolutely so brilliant. If you're starting to just get past the kind of beginner stage of Perfect Effects, this is where you want to be. So what we can do here as well, and I'm going to do this, is apply the effect to a certain area and take it away from everything else. So we could apply it to the highlights, midtones, shadows. Again, it just goes over them. Reds, greens, blues, etc. Even the neutrals down here at the bottom. So we can go to these different areas. Let's leave it at all for a second though, because I want to show you something else. Now, what people might say sometimes is, effects have brought out noise in my image, or effects have applied noise to my image. They won't do that. Anything inside of Perfect Effects is just enhancing the pixels that are in the image. You know, every image to a certain extent is going to have noise depending on how far you take the image. Now I'm taking it to an extreme stage here. But what I want to explain is, if you've got sort of noise in those highlights or shadows, you can go to the protect area here, drag these sliders to start to take it away, take the effect away from those areas. So we can protect those areas. Another cool thing, by the way, if you don't always want a brush mask, if you've got a person in the image, they've got flesh tones. Now, if those flesh, you know, if they're against a wall that's got similar kind of colours, then it's not going to work so well. That's where the brush comes in to play, really, and it's where it's better. But here you can drag to take the effect away from the flesh tones look, which is really, really interesting. So we can do that. We can also go to flesh ethnicity as well. And what you're going to see, as I'm moving it, can you see how it's changing? It's going to be really quick, so don't blink. But as I'm moving my cursor, the image is changing ever so slightly. So you can basically tell the software, you know, which sort of color to look for more precisely. Okay, we won't worry about that for a second. We will use that feature just for now to take it off of there. But what I want to do more importantly is go to, in fact, let's just take it back for a second, because this is a feature that's cool. I do like this. Is we'll go to apply effect to, and I'm just going to say, the highlights, because what it's going to do is kind of give me like really cool, dramatic, bright clouds now is apply the effect to the highlights. We've done that, okay. What we'll also find, look, it's affecting her again. So flesh colors, drag that up, take the effect off of those areas, okay. Again here, we might just go down, just quickly looking at the flesh ethnicity, maybe to just do a slightly tweaked better job. If we need to, we can brush more, folks. It's not a big hassle here. But what we want to do then is just say apply. And now when we adjust that amount slider, because we can still do that, we're just adjusting it kind of on the clouds there. So I'm literally clicking up and down my keys for the desired amount. So about 3 actually, just 30. So I'm being, you know, sort of really picky adding this effect at all, but I just think it gives that little bit extra when I switch on that particular layer to my kind of stormy, what looks like a stormy background now in some crazy science fiction film with the green filter, but it's very, very cool. I like that. That's a great thing. Now, once we've created that, if you go to preset at the top, you say save preset, and this is going to save your entire stack. Now, what it's not going to do, folks, is save the masks. Okay, these are something we're going to have to do with each image if we want to mask it. You know, there's going to be some we don't need to. But anyway, let's give the preset a name. So I'm just going to be like urban antique. Sounds a bit bizarre, I know, but urban antique. Yeah, it kind of suits this. We'll just call it that. Any name you want, really. Category. Now I've created a category called Andy Styles. Let's just say add new category here, just for you guys, so you know how it works. And we'll call this one demo. Okay, just for the one we're creating today for this YouTube demo. So we say okay. Now there's kind of a line dividing here. What it means is this is all you have to fill in. You could press create. But if you're in a camera club, some kind of society, you know, the WPPI in the States, I don't know, whatever it may be. If you've got other people that you want to share presets with, put your creator name in there, okay? Because what you can do is share presets with people if you want to, if you're particularly nice. More importantly though, this software is for 2 machines, straight up as it is, okay? If you want more licenses, contact the company at ononesoftware.com or ring us or whatever you want to do. But otherwise, we've got this on 2 machines. So remember, you might want to share this between machines. That's something that you could possibly do as well. Description here. Describe the effect to yourself. Remember when we went to those view browser options and that extra kind of pop-up appeared on the left-hand side and it gave me that description? This is going to go into that field there. So we might want to say to ourselves at this point, grunge, goddess, whatever, something like that. So let's just say grunge for now. Grunge, mask, urban, mask. Just as a reminder for us, we masked those layers. That's why it might look a little intense on a new image, because we're taking the effect off of skin tones or something like that, okay? Anyway, for now, we'll just say apply. Goes back to layers, back to Photoshop, Photoshop elements, whatever your workflow is, folks, remember. But for me, because I'm using the standalone product, it goes back to perfect layers. We'll then just go a quick before and after, because you'll be amazed how many times you just think, wow, that image was flat before I did this. Add the effect. Now, let's close this. One thing I want to do, and I'm not going to do much with this, I just want to show you a feature that's extremely useful, and not a lot of people, again, know about it. Some of you will, pat yourself on the back if you do, but it's something that's going to be important, because when I show some features of 8 in a minute, it's going to be really interesting to see how this has changed. So we're going to Perfect Effects again. Now, one thing that I'm kind of thinking that I want to do with the image is that red. Her red dress, it's going to probably affect the red up here as well. We could mask that, but it's besides the point here. I want to sort of enhance the red in some way or form. How do we do this? Just by going through the categories? Well, we could, let's just have a look here. Go to something like color correction and start to look. Okay, that darkened sky effect there, we can see it's affected the red. Maybe that's something we want to do. Not for me though. What I want to show you is this. Let's close that palette down. We're not going to use the presets or the effects. What we're going to do is come into our effect options straight up. When I click on this, what this really is the entire engine for Perfect Effects. We give you the use of the entire engine. We have 11 different things in here. We have black and white, blurs, all the way down to vignette. And every effect you see in the software has been built using this engine. We developed this just so we could use it across, you know, so many different workflows, you know, Lightroom, Photoshop, standalone, etc. Okay, what we're going to do here, let's go to Color Enhancer. Well, what will then appear is sliders to edit my colors. Here we're going to color range. I'm just going to go into the red, okay, because that's the one I'm interested in. Then we can start to adjust the reds in the image just by moving these sliders. So immediately there, just calling them off, I think it's given me a rather cool effect on the red here. I like that. It could be that we sort of enhance the saturation a little touch as well, and we've done that. Instead of having to go through all of those processes, go into here. Let's add one more quickly. I'm not going to brush and things, remember, we've already shown you that. Let's now go to, believe it or not, let's do this. Combine different things. Let's do a blur. I've not gone mad. Trust me. Just stay with me in a few more moments, please. Here, we've got different types of blur. I'm going to go to surface, which makes all the edges quite sharp, like so. Okay, we can adjust things like the threshold slightly. Okay, what we're then going to do, that magic options area, blending options, blending modes. As we blend blurs, they kind of give us different effects. So here we're going to go to darken. Gives me a beautiful kind of dark edge. It's almost to me like kind of tracing paper type effect, going back to my school days. Amount slider, again my keyboard controls, so 5, 6 on the keyboard. It's going to be subtle for me. Switching off that layer now, back on again. That's what we've done. We've added a kind of cool custom glow there, okay, of mine. So you can customize, you can make this your own, you can make it sing. If we wanted a muted color effect, just quickly, we'd go effect, black and white. Perfect black and white would be better, but we can then edit the kind of filter. Then we could say, right, okay, 7, 8, 6, something like that. Remember, these are my keyboard shortcuts to go to 60%, so 6 on my keyboard. It's a muted color effect, if that's what we wanted. So you've got lots of power, lots of control within the product itself, okay? The presets, the effects that are there for you are just there to speed everything up. You can edit your images in your own kind of precise way too, if that's what you want to do. Let's close this. Now what we're going to do is have a quick sneak peek to version 8. So at this stage you might want to stop watching if you're not interested. Or as I said before, if it's sort of after November the 26th now, you're watching this because it is on YouTube, then you know, I strongly urge you to watch a proper Suite 8 demonstration now, because this is an advanced beta copy, so a before release copy from back in September. So, you know, it might look different to this. It might sort of work differently as well. You know, at that stage, you're not seeing the final performance and things here. So just bear that in mind. Okay, anyway, what we're going to do, we're going to go down, we're going to select this image of Grand Central Station in New York. Okay, so we've got Grand Central here. Interesting image anyway. What we're going to do is edit it, because I want to show you some of the coolest new features for me. If we go into Perfect Effects, Okay, and bear with it. If this crashes or anything, it's a beta. So please be kind on the comments below. Anyway, you'll see my categories here. Now, I don't think these are all finished off, so don't panic. Okay, and what I've also explained to you before now is I think there's going to be less here than before, which is probably a good thing. Okay, choice can be a bad thing. But what's going to be interesting, folks, is, as I said before, but you might have missed it, is every single thing that I can click on here on the left-hand side is going to have those sliders, those effect options, or as we're calling them now, filter options, because they're all going to be filters really, because they're going to be editable. So that's going to be an extremely brilliant and welcomed feature for me. I'm going to love that. But anyway, what I want to show you here is if I go to filter options, the same as we saw before, we only had 11, okay? So now what we've done is added another 3 straight off the bat. Also, the ones that you've got already, you're going to find that pretty much all of them have been improved in some way or form anyway. So that's going to be really welcomed. And I'll show you what I mean when we go into the vignette tool in just a second. First, I'm going to go into dynamic contrast, but the new ones here are dynamic contrast, the HDR look filter, and lens blur. Now, lens blur is going to be just like focal point. If you're a focal point fan watching this, listen up. I'm a massive focal point fan myself, or focus in Suite 7, as you may have known it, if you're a standalone user. That's changed. In Suite 8, we're adding it to Perfect Effects. We're taking it away as a kind of standalone thing. And the reason we're doing that is often I was doing that, then I was coming into Perfect Effects anyway, or Perfect Black and White to stylize my image anyway. So it's a welcome feature to Perfect Effects. Everything we could do in focal point, don't panic, it's still there. That's great to know. But what's happened is we've got more we can do because it's in Perfect Effects, and that's what I like to hear. We can apply the lens blurs that we like and love. We've got the control of the masking bug, remember, that you would have for tilt and shifting. We can now brush, though, with the perfect brush. So we've got much more masking capabilities. Great news. So we've got lots of features that you're going to love. But then what we're going to look at here is dynamic contrast. Really interesting new filter. I love the look of this. As we scroll down now, you'll notice suddenly a lot more control. We're going to have use of presets. So 3 presets here to give you different looks, so natural, surreal, grunge, okay? We're going to also have a list of presets that you can grab. I'm not exactly sure how this is going to go. So as I said, after November the 26th, you might want to watch something else. But here anyway, this is the interesting bit. You've got contrast controls for micro, small, medium and large. So what we've done, now we've got contrasty effects already in Suite 7. We can control them with the brush. But what we wanted to do is, instead of you sort of controlling all the contrast in the image with just one slider, I don't want all the contrast to change sometimes. So instead I'm going to show you this. If we adjust the large, I'll just do a little slide here and let it go. What that's doing is it's boosting all the larger areas of contrast, okay, that we're looking at. So kind of around the big window frames here in the station, along these sort of big edges here as well. We can see that it's adjusted that. But if I zoom in now, and we'll zoom in kind of up here somewhere, let the screen adjust. As said, okay, it's adjusted. If it's a bit slow, I think that's because it's a beta, so ignore that, folks. But okay, we can see the image up. Now what we're going to do, let's do micro, so the smallest areas in the image. Let's boost that. This change is going to be subtle because we're looking at small areas, but we're basically adjusting the contrast separately in these areas of the image. So the small, we'll just do a little bit. Large, we'll bring that down a touch. Okay. Small, we're just doing it on different levels. It's really cool. I love that. Okay, so that's a new filter I love. Press the plus icon. I'm not sure, excuse how this looks. I'm not 100% this is going to help be how it looks in the final, so bear with me. But what we're going to do now, let's add a vignette. So I'm going to add the vignette tool. I'm just going to zoom out, okay? So we've added, let's just switch it on and off. I hope it doesn't break. Okay, well, there we go. We've added a vignette. Now we've got control. More control than before. Again, presets, okay? But here we're going to adjust the brightness. I'm going to make it go darker. I'm going to adjust the size. In fact, let's go the opposite way, like so. Okay, so we've got the vignette around the edges now. What I don't like though, I want the light all in this kind of area here. So this is a brilliant new feature. Set the center. Click that. Now you'll see a crosshair appear on the screen. Drag this, and you're moving where the vignette is going to be placed on the screen. Let's just try it again. I hope it's not going to... There we go. Okay, so adjusting that. Then I'm just going to adjust the size a little more. And now we've only got the vignette basically kind of mainly in these corners. So I love that. Thank you very much for watching, folks. I hope you've enjoyed it today. Remember to log into future webinars from on1software.com if you're interested. They are free to attend. There's free training materials on there. If you're looking at this sort of before November the 26th, if you go to on1software.com right now, you can sign up for a free public beta of Suite 8 as well if you're interested. Thank you very much. Have a great day wherever you are. Thank you, folks.